Envy is one of those emotions that no one really wants to admit to. I mean, there's really nothing good about it, and it's pretty hard to justify in our lives. And yet many of us will kind of have some of those feelings that'll come up, and we thinking, Lord, why are you blessing that person with that and not with me? Or it just doesn't seem fair that my life is so hard and theirs seems so good. And even though those thoughts can be pretty common, the object of our envy can be very different for different women. For some, it's the envy of relationships. They might see a friend and think, wow, I wish my husband was a little bit more like hers. Or they're at somebody's house and they're looking around and thinking, boy, I'm a little envious of their financial situation that they can afford such a nice home. We can even be envious in church. A family might come and sit right in front of you, and you start feeling a little resentful, a little envious because you're there by yourself because your husband or your children aren't following the Lord. I think another one that's very common for women is we envy the physical appearance of others. Most of us know that person that can eat whatever they want and still look fantastic. And then there's others that can't even look at food and they gain a pound. It is truly amazing how quickly our hearts will long for the things that we do not have. There's always someone to be envious of. Even though the Lord has blessed each and every one of us, we convince ourselves that unless we have that job or that home or that marriage or the success of our children, that we cannot be happy. We can no longer be content because we are looking at what others have. I don't think I have to convince you that envy isn't a very good thing. But what I don't think we always recognize is that we sometimes minimize what envy does to us and what it does to others. So today, we're going to be looking at the impact of envy on our lives. The first thing that I believe envy does is envy causes us to doubt the true character of God. And what I mean by this is that when we are envious, we are saying that we want another person's life, or we want what they have. So really what we're saying to God is that the life you have given me, or the things that you have given me, are not enough. Our hearts are longing for what somebody else has, and it shows that really we are either questioning the goodness of God or we are questioning his control over our lives. So we're doubting the true character of God. If you find yourself questioning God's goodness or questioning his control over your lives, all you need to do is look at the cross. Romans 8:32 says, since he did not spare even his own son for us, but gave him up for us all, won't he also surely give us everything else? God worked the most horrific event in history for our good. Can we really question his goodness? As we look at what others have, we need to see them in view of the cross. Because when we are envious, we are saying that God is not doing a good enough job in our life. He is failing to rule over the events of our lives. It shows that we have set our hearts on things of this world and not on him. He has given us the greatest gift that we could ever receive, one that can never be taken away from us. So when we find ourselves being envious, we need to be patient. We need to remember the character of God, that he is good and that we can trust him, so we can trust him for what we need. The second thing that envy does is envy blocks love. If you're struggling with envy, you cannot really rejoice with another person when good things happen to them. If you are longing for what somebody else has, you're going to be focused on your lack, not on loving them. It is really impossible to be truly close in a healthy way to someone that you are envious of. Romans 12:15 says, be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. You aren't going to be able to do either one of these things on a deep level if you're envious. You may be able to be a little sad when they're sad, but even then those thoughts come in of, oh, they've got so much else going for them. And you're certainly not going to be able to be happy when they're happy because you're too wrapped up in yourself. The crazy thing is that do we not think God has enough blessings to go around? That if he blesses my neighbor, then he's not going to have anything left over for me? That's crazy. God's resources are limitless. If I don't have something, it's because the God who loves me and knows me has decided that it's not best for me at this time. So when we are envious of a person, we cannot truly love them because we're really in competition to them. Jesus said the greatest commandment was to love God and to love others. We are not going to be able to fulfill what God sees as most important of loving others if we are envious. The third thing that love does is love causes blindness. It's really interesting how selective we are when we're envious. We may want the financial freedom that our friend has, but we don't want her workaholic husband. We pick and choose what we want. We want to keep what we have, And then we're envious of what others have, but we don't want the challenges that go along with it. You may be envious of a friend because her husband is so romantic, but you are blind to the fact that your husband can remodel your kitchen and her husband wouldn't need to know what to do if the sink was leaking. We become blind to what we have because we are so focused on what others have. And even if we receive the object of our envy, we wouldn't really be satisfied. We would just want more because we have an envious heart. We lose the joy of our life because we are trying to live another's. Proverbs 14:13 says, "A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot." Who wants rotten bones? You're rotting from the inside out. We are only going to be free from envy through the power of God. Our hearts long for things that we see around us. We set our affections on the things that we see and not on God. And learning to desire the things of God and to be content will be a lifelong process. Colossians 3:1-2 says, "Since you have been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth." Realistically, I don't think we can will ourselves to be content. I actually think contentment is a result. It shouldn't necessarily be the goal. It's the result of knowing that God is good and trusting His plan for my life. It's the result of experiencing the love of God and then learning to love others that way. It is a result of seeing my life from a heavenly perspective. So contentment really is the result of a heart that is satisfied in God. Each week we have talked about the cleanse. The cleanse is something that you're going to have to do over and over again, but the process is the same. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Recognize that envy really is a lack of trust in a loving God. Go to the Bible, find some verses on envy and memorize it. Commit yourself to prayer. Confess the sin of envy and ask God to give you right desires. And lastly, seek wisdom and accountability. Ask others to join you in your journey of becoming more like Jesus.